What is good, everybody? It is Momentum Monday. That means we are going to talk something about what you can do essentially to get started on the right foot and get momentum working in your favor. Okay, so today we're actually going to talk about get your life, right? The quotes, the air quotes. This is a saying, you've probably heard it, that's floating around, but essentially, when your life is messy, when it's out of control, get your life, get yourself together, right? So we're going to talk about that in a very practical way so that you can consider and reflect on something that you actually want to get together, and you can get real about what that actually means. In other words, who do you need to be? Who do you need to become in order to have that, in order to create that result in your life, in order for that outcome to come forth, right? Because out of nothing and out of no way, God can make a way. But there's also a co-creating that's happening. There's a co-laboring that's happening. God has a part and we have a part, right? So there was a verse that was highlighted to me as this came up, and I want to give you a really practical way in just one area that I've put this into practice. So there is a verse, it's actually Proverbs 6. Just read all of Proverbs really for wisdom, because wisdom is the principal thing. But Proverbs 6 through 11 says this: go to the ant. It says, "O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." If you study the ants, right? And I'm living in Texas now, and I've never seen anything like fire ants. These things are crazy. Oh my goodness. How quickly they'll build in these like massive mounds too, and how resilient they are. It blows my mind. But go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, without having any chief, officer, or ruler. No oversight, right? She prepares her bread in the summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands to rest, right? And it goes on, and it talks about how you will surely set yourself up for poverty. So consider the ant. There's another one where it talks about the ant. It's Proverbs 30, 24 through 25, and it says, "Four things on earth are small, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they provide their food in the summer." So that's one. And then another way to break down the ant example from Proverbs is Proverbs 13. "The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing." So there's the wanting, there's the talking about, but there's never the doing. And the diligent, consistent doing, like the ant provides. "The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied." Okay, and then lastly, where's the one that I was looking for? This one, Colossians 3:23. "Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men." So a lot of times when we think about the effort something will take, or the actual pain of making change, we don't want to do it. We don't want to show up for it. I made a post about leadership and how leadership is probably the most encouraging. It's a series of encouraging experiences in your life, but it's the most stretching and painful as well. So a lot of people don't want to lead because of that, right? So if we want to avoid pain, a lot of times we will refuse to grow, because sometimes growing is painful. Not all growth is painful, but a lot of it is. When we're renewing our mind and changing our belief system, when we're processing an emotion that is really uncomfortable to actually sit with and feel and process, right? When we're actually looking at some of the things that we've stored up in our heart that are actually holding us back from moving forward, that stuff can feel heavy. And it can feel like you don't want to change. So these scriptures are providing a really great foundation, though, for how to show up when you do want to make real and lasting change in your life, okay? It is being diligent, right? So it's identifying what needs to change, and then it's being diligent about making changes each and every day, and doing it as unto the Lord, not for yourself even, and not for man, but doing everything as unto the Lord, right? Because our life is a gift, and then how we live it is the return on investment or our gift back to God, okay? So I want to show you a post that I made today to give you an example of how this works in action, okay? Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. So there's a post like this. I don't know if you can see it. It's a before and an after. Ding, ding, ding. Now, there isn't a lot of a difference. And frankly, I cannot tell you what the physical difference is necessarily. But that's not the point, which is why I want to break it down, right? Like I can't really, I don't know if you can see that. Dun, dun, dun. So the point isn't, wow, I dropped 3 jean sizes. I lost X number of pounds or whatever. Like none of that was the point. The point is that I committed to messy, imperfect action every day. And I completed a 9-week program from start to finish in the midst of a historic winter storm, Arctic blast, and a lot of other things that were going on. I still committed showing up each and every day for myself and finishing this program. So I want to break this example down for you because physically speaking, that's something that you can see. And an image is worth 1,000 words, right? But that's something that you can see. That's something that you can get. That's something that you can grasp. And a lot of times our inner work is not. We can't always explain the changes that are happening in us. Sometimes we can feel it, but if we're honest, we have no idea what's actually happening, right? Well, like there's a lot of things going on there. Classic example for me, when I gave my life to the Lord, I used to not be able to cry. For years of my life, I could not cry at all. Literally could not. I would go to movies, like I would feel some kind of way, but there would be no crying, right? If something sad happened, I just wouldn't cry. Like it was like nothing would happen. No waterworks, nothing, right? And then all of a sudden, when I gave my life over to the Lord, there was so much crying and like sobbing, right? Like I've never even heard some of the sound effects of that kind of crying coming out of me ever in my entire life. I was like, I have no idea. I can't even articulate what's happening, but God is doing a work in my heart. God is bringing healing to my soul. And I can't even tell you what I'm actually feeling and processing right now. Like if I had to just label an emotion or just name an experience, I couldn't, right? So sometimes we're going through something, we're actually changing, we're actually growing, but when we're in it, it doesn't feel like it. Like we feel like we're a hot freaking mess, right? So this is my Momentum Monday question to you. Are you willing to take messy, imperfect action every day? Because a lot of times, despite what we see on social media, despite what we see on the news, despite what we see people post and just project into the world, it's messy and imperfect a lot of the time. Okay. So are you willing, first and foremost, when you think about your week ahead and the momentum that you're going to put into it, are you willing to show up no matter what is another way to say that. Are you willing to show up for whatever it is, for whatever your goal is, whether that's a physical goal, whether that's a spiritual goal, whether that's a financial goal, whether that's a business goal, whether that's a career goal of some kind, are you willing to show up and take messy and perfect action? Meaning when I don't feel like it, I'm going to show up anyway. Meaning when I don't think that I have time, I'm going to make time, right? Somewhere in the window between when my eyes open in the morning and my head hits the pillow at night, I'm going to figure out how to make that happen. Right? If your goal is to grow closer in your connection and in your fellowship, in your relationship with the Lord, are you making space for that in your life no matter what? Does that mean getting up earlier if that's one of your goals? Are you going to sit with God and spend time there every day just like you would any other relationship that you want to flourish? You would pour into it. You would invest into it, right? Are you going to mentor somebody, right? Like what are your goals? And are you willing to show up and take messy and perfect action? Simply put, you will not always feel like the thoughts are flowing and it's just creative and you're always inspired. You're not always going to be inspired, right? You're not always going to feel like it. In fact, we get really good at talking ourselves out of things, right? We get really comfortable living in resistance, right? And complaining and murmuring and whining. If the weather looks some kind of way, if something happened that didn't go according to our plan, right? If we didn't even think about, I call it pre-paving. If we didn't even think about what we wanted flowing in our day, a lot of times we just let things happen to us and we become the victim of our day versus influencer of our day, right? So think about that. Are you willing to take messy and perfect action? This is a really great self-check question as you go throughout your week. Am I willing, even though I don't feel like it, even though I'm not thinking the right things right now, am I going to take control of my mind? Am I going to shift myself into a different energy? Am I going to sit with this and actually feel my feelings so that I can heal and that I can grow, right? You have everything within you that you need to actually feel and to identify and to heal. With God, you do, right? So think about that. Am I willing to do that? So the picture that I showed was the first day one and then the last day of a 9-week program. So in between there was a whole lot of messy imperfect action. And this was just a physical goal. My physical goal was pretty simple. I didn't have a weight because I don't have a scale. I don't have a measurement goal because I literally have not measured myself ever. I don't have a portion control goal or a calorie goal or any of that, to be real. And my goals were to show up for myself and move my body every day, to drink a ton of water, because I used to not drink water really at all, like barely enough, right? And I don't want to live in dehydration because that can cause headaches and moodiness and all sorts of other things, right? And I wanted to feel good and high energy. So I mostly wanted to take care of my overall physical health. I wanted to move my body, to sweat, to just release stress, to have an outlet, to take care of me every day. So I want to show up physically for me every day so I can be strong, because when I'm working out, I feel strong. My metabolism is high. My digestion is working correctly. My mind is more clear and I'm able to focus better. I have more energy throughout my entire day to do what I have to do in my life, what I get to do in my life. So I had very intangible goals. I really wanted to feel good, and I wanted to not only just feel good energetically, but feel good in clothes, right? Like I haven't had to move clothing sizes for years, and I like that, and I don't overthink it. So the cool thing about this goal and showing up for myself every day and just being consistent, the results, all those other things take care of themselves, okay? So not counting calories, not portion control, none of that stuff. What I did, drank a ton of water, ate clean, and really as close to the source as possible. So avoiding a lot of sugars, caffeine, starches, all sorts of, like a lot of carbs. I love carbs though. So if I'm eating a carb, it would be something like quinoa or like a lentil of some kind, right? Mixed with vegetables. So maybe it's a soup with lentils in it, right? So I was making sure that I had protein and vegetables and fruits and all of that getting into my systems. I like shakes a lot too. So if I can blend up all of that stuff that I don't always like to eat individually, it's a win for me. So it's simple. And that's freeing to me, because I remember a time in a season where I worked out like a crazy person. I counted calories. I did do the portion control. I was concerned about a jean size or a certain weight. And I became a shell of who I was. All of the creativity that I could be living in, all of the time that I spent working out and worrying about all of that was now freed up so I could actually have and enjoy my life. There was no freedom in that. That to me was an obsession, okay? And I hated it. I hated it. It felt out of control. Like I took the very thing that was supposed to bring some relief and release into my life and turned it into something that became out of control. It became an idol in a certain season, right? So for years of my life now, I refuse to go back to that place. I know the importance of taking care of my body, and it's the vessel I've been given, so I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to obsess about it. I'm going to show up, get a 30-minute workout in, and I'm done. I'm done. I don't have to worry about driving to the gym. I don't have to worry about paying a trainer. I don't have to worry and give a bunch of time and energy and thought to it. I just show up, knock it out, and I'm done. That's it. And the same with food too. I go to the grocery store once a week. I get what I need. I make a list. I bring it to the grocery store. It's not dramatic. I can be in and out of there in less than an hour, right? And then throughout the week, I can be making things as it makes sense. I did in one season too, even do like a Sunday cook up. So anything that would take more than 30 minutes, I would cook it in advance. So during the week, I didn't spend a lot of time on the things that I didn't want to spend time on. So I could spend time elsewhere. Okay. So just examples, it's really important to think about how you want to be, and then that will inform your do. Okay. So for example, a lot of times we just focus on an outcome. Like, I want to be a size whatever, or I want to wear this size of jean, or I want to lose X amount of pounds, right? So we focus on that outcome and then we become insane in the process of trying to get there. Because what we usually do is we focus on how far we are from the goal, how impossible that goal feels, and we just talk ourselves out of it. And sometimes we end up gaining more weight and really getting even further away from that actual outcome because we're not focusing on who we have to be actually to make that happen. Okay. And once you actually discover that, it's easier to maintain. It's way easier, in my perspective, to be consistent than it is to try to climb a mountain over and over again, right? Which is what dieting is a lot of the time. There's a big yo-yo in it. Like, I'm going to try this thing and then I'm good for a minute and then I fall off. And then I'm going to do this and then I fall off again. So it's like, I don't like living sporadic like that. It does not bring out my best and my highest self. It's not something I can sustain long term. So I had to eventually sit with the discomfort and get clear on what the heck am I doing? Why am I spending so much time on all these weight machines and all these elliptical machines? Why am I counting calories? Why am I so concerned about food? Why does it matter if I'm wearing this jean size or this jean size? Like, how is that actually impacting my future? Like, who am I being when I'm being really controlling about all that stuff? With me? So I want to bring this perspective to you. So what happened for me, and this was in college when this kind of stuff was happening. So it became when I was out of college that I finally sat with the discomfort of what am I running from? What is all of this producing coming from? What is up here, right? So when I actually sat with that discomfort and got clear, I was able to make this shift, and I've sustained it for years now, right? Of who do I want to be? Who am I becoming so that I can actually have and enjoy my life in abundance to the full till it overflows? Because the devil is a liar. I'm not here to be crazy and caught up in my mind. I'm not here to try to wear my body down. I'm not here to be worried and fearful about some really simple choices, actually, right? Okay, so what I started to realize was, I want to be vibrant. I want to be full of energy. I want to be mentally clear. I don't want to be in a fog. I want to live free of headaches. I want to sleep well. I want to have time in my space in my life for creativity and for fun and adventure as it comes up. I want to be able to work out in a short window of time and actually get results and let that be enough, right? Like, I want to actually prove to myself that I can work out 30 minutes a day and that's okay. I don't have to work out 3 hours a day or multiple times a day, right? I want to eat what I enjoy and not punish myself or read into that or even count the calories or freak out about that, right? I want to feel good and have my mind freed up for other things, right? I do want to take care of myself, but I want to do it in a way that is sustainable and fun and easy, super simple for me to show up for, okay? So that actually turned into what you see today. I've been doing this for years now. I just literally work out 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day. I just literally work out 30 minutes a day. I eat really clean. I drink a ton of water. I'm kind of a grazer when it comes to food, but I eat I know how to spot check food now. So I have no clue what the calorie count is. I don't weigh myself. I don't take measurements. I sleep super well. My energy is always high. And even when there's moments where it's not or it fluctuates, I can sense what's happening. Maybe I drank too much caffeine that day. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. But these are things that, because I'm paying attention and because I actively have a desire to take care of myself, it's easier to show up for myself and listen to my body and work with my body, not against it. So this is an example of focusing on who you want to be so that you can actually become the outcome that you're after. Does that make sense? So I would say if you too have been in a place, and this is just a physical goal, because again, you can grasp that. If you too have been in a place where you feel like what you're doing is never enough, like you're not getting the outcome, pause. What are you doing? Why might you not be getting the outcome? Because if you're not enjoying the journey, if it's not fun for you, it's really difficult to show up. So what does that mean? Does that mean walking for 30 minutes every day? Does that mean finding a program that you can literally just push play and show up for and you're done? Does that mean working out from home? Does that mean having a trainer? What does it mean for you? So it's actually simple for you to show up for, and you're not so caught up in your mind about it, and you're not so caught up in the doing, and it's never enough, right? You've got to break a cycle somehow. So that's an example. So are you willing to take messy, imperfect action? The next thing would be, who do you actually want to be? When you focus more on the being and the experience and what you are sowing, right? Are you sowing peace and patience and kindness and goodness and self-control? Are you literally sowing the fruit of the Spirit in your life? Are you sowing chaos and frustration and anger and bitterness and resentment and self-hate, right? Like, what are you being? Because whatever you're sowing, you're going to see more in your life. Okay? So think about that. Versus the obsession with outcomes, think about the being and let the doing take care of itself. When you are being who you are formed, shaped, and anointed to be, the inspired actions come and you take them as they come. And it's a whole lot of freedom, right? Because you're not spending all your time, energy, emotion, all your resource on wasted efforts, right? Unless the Lord builds the house, it will not stand. God doesn't move like we move, okay? And when you get in sync with God, it frees you up. You navigate completely different. So just meditate on that. Okay, so next, I want to highlight and just remind you, in case nobody is doing it, that anytime you're going to clean up your act, your life, whether that's, again, a practical, physical goal, a spiritual goal, whatever it is, you have to be willing to deal with the mess that comes with change. So I mentioned leadership before, and a lot of times why leadership can be so challenging is it's an exposer. Yeah. So it exposes your weaknesses, your fears, your inadequacies. So you're very much aware of that in yourself, and you grow and you walk through that in order to be able to lead other people through their own, right? So that can feel super uncomfortable. And leadership often is you go first. So that can be super messy, right? Because it's exposing all these things that you didn't want to see and that you weren't looking at before. And now you're intimately aware, acutely aware of what's going on in you, okay? And many times, here's the thing, God can deal with our mess, but many times we think that we need to present this like prim and proper and perfect example to man and to God, right? And we know that we're frauds in that because we know that we're a mess. We know that we're imperfect beings, right? And we're also spiritual beings having a human experience. So we navigate, we move, we flow different, but we try to control that. We try to regulate it so that it can be perceived in some kind of way, which is really us being inauthentic, frankly, and us working ourselves out of alignment with who we are and with who God formed, shaped, and anointed us to be, okay? So instead of being, what this does too, let me say this. Many times when we try to create this facade, if you will, we start backsliding because we know that we can't sustain that. We know that we're not living authentically, and we start becoming distant from God because we know Holy Spirit is the best self-check and will convict us anywhere we're out of alignment. And we don't want to be exposed. We don't want other people to see what we're seeing, right? So we try to create distance. So pay attention if you have any habits or tendencies that look like that, okay? And here's where the shift happens. This is huge. This is actually how you show up for yourself. When you are tempted to be like puffed up and full of pride and your ego is kicking in and actually edging God out, right? When that is happening for you, go low, humble yourself before the Lord and he will lift you up, right? So get low and come to a place where you can recognize that your life currently has and it will have mess in it. There's going to be things that are messy. Just accept that. Be aware of that, okay? And then acknowledge that cleaning up our lives, whether it's our act, our behavior, whether it's our lives, our habits, our routines, this is often, I think of it like something visual or tangible that you can put your mind around, like cleaning the house, okay? So when you think about cleaning your house, and I know that I've thought about this before, you kind of have this mentality that you want to like clean it one time to like stay that way, right? Like if I just clean it really good, like down to the floorboards, all the things, right? Mop the floors, like get the above the fans, like get all the dust, get all the stuff, like do a deep clean. If I just do that, it'll stay clean, right? And if you're one of those people that can clean your house like literally one time and then never have to clean it again because it stays clean, you're lying. Like even if you don't have kids, even if you live alone, there is still mess that will happen. That's part of being alive, okay? And our soul in this case is kind of like the house, right? So as long as we're living, as long as we're growing, as long as we're connecting and relating with people, right? We can expect that our lives, our heart, our spirit, our patience, our faith, right? Our peace, our kindness, all of that is going to get messy. And it's going to, if we're not monitoring it, if we're not cleaning house, if we're not growing, if we're not maturing, it's going to cause us to become a lesser version of ourselves, right? Because we're under the influence of weakness and anger and frustration versus, right, a righteousness, peace, and joy. For example, whatever we're under the influence of, it could be limiting us and diminishing us when we're supposed to be growing and evolving and expanding and upgrading. Okay? So just think about that. Usually our feelings are the best indicator of, right, when we are growing or when we're staying small. A great way to get to this too is, where are you comfortable? Or what have you accepted that you know is not acceptable? Subtle. But once we catch that, then with God, we can work on getting messy and cleaning that up, okay? Which isn't always going to feel good. But God is your strength. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So if you bring that willingness to take the messy and perfect action, you humble yourself before the Lord, He will lift you up. He will strengthen you. He will guide you. He will establish your steps. He will help you change and transform. Literally. You can be completely unrecognizable to yourself when you actually do the work in a good way, okay? All right, so the solution, this is what I call it. I have a saying. I've written all my books under this main heading: God's vibes matter, okay? We know a vibe. We can feel it. We can perceive it, right? We can experience it. We can't always articulate it, right? Similar to God. God is the mind of Christ, the presence and the Spirit of God, and how you recognize that, how you relate with that, right? All of our spiritual senses, you operate completely different, okay? So the solution to cleaning up your act, cleaning up your life, is a consistent rhythm of inner development. I got to develop my mind. I got to develop my spirit. I've got to develop my heart. Got to develop my emotions. I've got to develop my inner resilience, right? I've got to develop, because we grow or we die, quite literally. If we don't work something, it's going to deteriorate. That's what's going to happen, right? Just same thing like the physical example. If you don't work muscles, you're not going to have any. Just what's up. Okay, so this consistent rhythm of inner development, right, is being focused on God and keeping in remembrance that God's vibes matter. Not my vibes, so not my thoughts, not my ways, because those are usually patterned by things that I don't want to repeat in my life. Often in the world that we're living in, that's where generational curses, dysfunction, all that comes from. And I will subconsciously choose that unless I am creating resistance against it. With me? So with God, we can do that. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. So as we work on renewing our mind, as we work on having a right spirit renewed in us, not a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, as we operate out of that, we live by a different rhythm. We flow different. We show up different, right? So as we are constantly keeping God in remembrance and focusing on God, we can make these steps every day, one day at a time, one moment at a time. And transformation in general is messy because any thought that's exalting itself above the truth, we start to see those. Any emotion, anything that we're experiencing that's not of God, we start to become aware of that. And we start to see how we've been under the influence of lesser things, and we've actually been walking out a lesser version of ourselves in different areas of our life, right? Or when we see what we've stored up in our heart, or how we judged and criticized and held all this anger and unforgiveness, that's heavy. That's heavy. Okay? So transformation is messy, but God can teach us how to clean, because sometimes we don't know. And sometimes it's just processing with God, and that's healing all by itself, right? God can mature us and grow us. And sometimes transformation with God, it's accelerated. We don't even know, again, that we're growing and changing. But as we read the word, as we shift our perspective, things start shifting. And a lot of times the promotion and the elevation happens in the spirit before it does in the natural, okay? So God can teach us how to clean, how to grow, how to mature, all right? And just really how to organize our lives or build our lives on the rock. So it's not on sand and everything's falling all over the place and we keep having to go around the mountain or repeat lessons. Not a fun time. Not the momentum you want running in your life, right? And when you and God come into agreement about who you need to become, right? So a lot of times he will give us prophetic words or give us vision, right? He will help us to see clearly and give us glimpses of where we're headed. And when we get in agreement with God about who we need to become in order to receive that promise, right? In order to be available, to have the capacity to walk that promise out, to sustain it, right? Basically too, like the level of wholeness and righteousness that you want to bring into the world, whatever it is that you've been really designed to do and release in the world, when you get in agreement with God about that, that's change. That's change. It's not all of your effort. It's not all of your action. Action is a part of it, but you really want to focus on, who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Now let me pull back. What does that mean for how I show up daily? If you do that, you will set goals completely different. You'll build different, okay? And you'll move different. Cleaning up our lives and our spirit is what we do. So this is something that it's not the one and done example. Like, you don't do it one time. You don't get that breakthrough. You don't do therapy for a week and you're done. You don't just have a coach for a month, right? We are constantly and consistently growing and evolving and developing, right? And that's what we do. And we do it so that we can continue to operate in excellence and steward well what we've been given. Okay, when we don't clean up our lives, sometimes we create a bigger mess, even than what we were given. Okay, so the alternative, I've given you the solution, but the alternative is do nothing. Do nothing, right? If you do nothing, you're going to have more of the same. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? But no, here's what I will leave you with. But no, when you do nothing, things do get worse, because that deterioration process is at work. If you don't become an active participant in pursuing your goals and stay committed to them one day at a time, one moment at a time, right? You will see areas of your life deteriorate. If you're not influencing something, it has an impact. It's being changed, but probably not in the direction that you want it to, right? You need to become a force of resistance against that process. That is getting your life, okay? So I am challenging you today, Momentum Monday, to think about the momentum that you put into each and every day. You are the cause. You are the creator. You are the one that is creating your reality, one day at a time and one moment at a time. Your thoughts, your emotions, your inner world, that is a vibe. That is actually a frequency, and it's creating something. It's causing you to flow a certain way, and it's also causing you to see results show up in your life that are in agreement with exactly what you're sowing. It's law. It's a principle, the principle of sowing and reaping, right? You will reap what you sow. So if you don't like the harvest that you've been seeing in your life, you are the common denominator. So who do you want to become? Then who do you need to be one day at a time, one moment at a time to become that. And the action will take care of itself. Okay? So I challenge you to think today, am I willing to take messy and perfect action? Because I accept that in my process of becoming and in my life in general, as long as I'm alive, there will be a mess. Thoughts get messy, emotions get messy. What I'm processing in my heart is messy. Other people and being in relationship with other people is messy. Navigating challenges is messy. Living in uncertainty is messy, right? Feeling really uncomfortable feelings is messy, especially if I train myself not to feel them, right? So I accept that it's going to be messy, but am I willing to be the person that will become what God has showed me, right? Am I going to wrap my head around who God says that I am? Am I going to wrap my head around that? And then am I going to get my soul in agreement with that, right? Our spirit needs to have the soul. The soul needs to submit to what the spirit is saying, right? That's coming into alignment. That's the God's vibes matter. So am I going to do this continual, consistent process of inner development? Am I going to be involved in creating that rhythm? Is it going to be fun for me? Because God leads in ways of pleasantness and peace, right? And if I follow that flow, I can sustain it. But if I follow force and if I build without God, it's not going to stand. It's going to fall apart every time. Every time. So I encourage you to think about that today. Am I willing to take messy and perfect action? Who do I need to become who do I need to be to become who God showed me? And what is my next action? My next inspired action? Not action just to be busy, not action just for the sake of it, but what does that look like? One day at a time, one moment at a time. What do I need to think? What do I need to train myself to feel? How can I activate these qualities every day? How can I set up habits and routines in my life to make that easier for myself? Do I need to work with a coach to have some accountability? Because I need that into my life. I don't have the right voice talking to me every day, right? So I challenge you to think about that. Momentum, especially if it's the wrong momentum, not fun. A train full speed ahead, right? Just going to crash. But if you get ahead of that momentum and you direct the flow of it, it will work with you and then you can float on it. It's like surfing. Okay? So I hope this message blessed you. Oh my goodness. If it did, let a girl know. You can also follow or subscribe if you don't, so that you can be the first to know when different videos come out each week. You can also visit julianapage.com for coaching, for books, for all sorts of ways to really just grow and develop spiritually and build a spirit-led life. So go check out julianapage.com. And until next time, guys, stay blessed.